A shed for two. It was Christmas Eve on the island of Sodor, and all the engines were headed back to their warm sheds to enjoy the company of their friends. Well, all except for D261, of course. He was in disgrace. A few months ago, he had been brought back to the island and had a serious accident. Ever since, he had been sitting alone in a shed, waiting to be repaired. The main work shed at Croven's Gate had been busy, so he had been spending his time at Wellsworth. D261 was sure that after he was repaired, he'd be sent back to the mainland in disgrace. Good riddance. I never liked this railway anyway. Just then, D261 heard a set of points change just up ahead. Oh great, here comes that box cab. However, he was mistaken. Sorry to disappoint, old boy, but I'm afraid Philip will be out of the yard tonight. The engine, of course, was Edward. He rolled up alongside the green diesel in the other berth. Oh, just my luck. I have to sleep with an old iron engine. I'm sure his rusty old parts will keep squeaking all night. Well, if my parts are that squeaky, I guess it's a good thing I'm in the work shed now, isn't it? D261 wasn't amused. Don't you normally spend Christmas Eve with your fellow kettles or something like that? Well, normally, yes, but I do have a special train I need to pick up from Brendam, so I figured I might as well spend the night here. Besides, Philip's been dying to visit Tidmouth again. Hey, Gordon! Hey, Gordon, remember that time I beat you in a race? Oh! I'm sure he and the big engines are getting along swimmingly. Speaking of which, I was hoping to make your acquaintance. We've never properly been introduced, after all. Pah! Now that's a good one. Me, D261, the greatest of all Class 40 diesels, make the acquaintance of a stinking steamer? I'd sooner rest. Well, we're going to be sharing this shed for a few hours, so we might as well get to know each other. And what is there to know about? I am a diesel, and you are an out-of-date steam engine. Well, I'm sorry to say, D261, but you're not exactly up-to-date either. Your class has been working for about 2 decades now? Pah! As if that's even a comparison. You must be reaching nearly 100 by now. 90. Same difference. Well, despite my age, the Fat Controller still thinks I'm useful, and he thinks wrong. Edward chose to challenge D261's logic. Well, I'm still operating. The Fat Controller keeps me in service, and I run to time. So how could he be wrong? D261 paused, as if he had to plan out his response. Well, he just is. The diesel paused impressively. After all, the controllers on the other railway told us so. And what if they're wrong? I beg your pardon? Well, if my controller can be wrong, why can't they? Well, you listen here, steamer. The controllers on the other railway know what they are talking about. They are the ones that built me. They are the ones who told me I am perfect. And they told all my class the same thing. And if they are wrong, then... The diesel paused. Then what's the difference between us? Edward looked at the diesel with a serious glance. You're afraid, aren't you? Afraid of what? Of you? Of being obsolete. You're afraid that the railway will deem you just as out of date as me, and throw you to the cutter's torch. Well, that's preposterous. It's a perfectly understandable thing to be afraid of, D261. There was once a time I would have been seen as modern, but now I'm only safe here. D261 went as quiet as a statue, before asking the only question that mattered. Do you think this place, Sodor, could be a safe place for a diesel like me? Edward smiled at the diesel. Well, you'd have to work on your attitude. But the Fat Controller does believe in second chances, even for a diesel like you. The diesel smiled. Do you think you could put in a good word for me? Absolutely. Thank you, Edward. Right, Edward. I only wish I hadn't made a fool of myself before. Twice. Trust me, it's kind of a rite of passage here on Sodor. You'd be quite surprised the things I got up to in my youth. Really? Pray tell. Well, it all began with a giant balloon on a flatbed. A week passed and things went back to normal on the Fat Controller's railway. Gordon was clearing snow and was about to talk to Edward when suddenly... Edward! The Fat Controller has allowed me to stay on your lovely railway. Oh, I am pleased to hear that. As you should be. I will prove that I am a useful engine who deserves to be on this railway. In fact, maybe there's a giant balloon I can take from Brendam Docks. Farewell! Giant balloon. I might have made up some stories to make him feel a bit better. Think of it as my Christmas gift to him. Puh, I still don't think he belongs here. We don't have room for pompous engines like him. Edward gave a knowing smile. You'd be surprised, Gordon. Sodor has a way of humbling even the most boastful engines.